이제 준비가 거의 다 된 것 같은데요. 자, 세 번째 열리게 되는 오늘 포럼, 내년에는 또 과연 어떤 이야기들로 또 미래를 같이 이야기할 수 있을지 굉장히 기대가 됩니다. 자, 그럼 본격적으로 오늘 포럼 첫 번째 순서 소개를 드리겠습니다. 자, 이제 열심히 또 준비를 하고 계시죠. 아마 기조 강연을 준비하시면서 어떤 생각을 하셨을지 굉장히 궁금한데요. 오늘 포럼의 첫 번째 문을 열어주실 이야기들 만나보도록 하겠습니다. 자, 글로벌 데스티네이션 서스테너빌리티 인덱스의 가이 빅우드 매니징 디렉터님 소개를 드리겠습니다. Could you please come up to the stage? 그리고 여러분 큰 박수로 환영해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. Thank you. Okay, I'm so sorry. I will deliver the microphone. 자, 마이크 혹시 작동을 좀 봐주시겠습니까? Okay. That's okay.
Just try again. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Thank you.
Good. I don't have to shout then. Oh, that's great. Good. So, let's start again. I'm English. I live in Catalonia in Barcelona for the last 19 years. My wife is from Hong Kong. So everywhere I seem to go to, there's problems. So it's nice to come to Korea where it's calm and it's great to be here. So thank you very much for inviting me. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about leveraging sustainability for success. And how destinations all around the world are using sustainability for success. How they're using it to make their destinations more competitive. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. But first of all, I'd like to welcome you to the sustainability revolution. Welcome to the revolution. It's a fascinating time that's happening around the world. Wind turbines going up everywhere, solar panels popping up, massive consumer shifts to greener, more sustainable lifestyles. It's something that Goyang understands, and I know the mayor understands. And I've seen and had the pleasure of helping organize some trips to Copenhagen and some other places where they've been learning and sharing what you're doing here. But some really good stuff happening, but more is being demanded. We're seeing this big demand for change. I'm not sure how it's happening here, but the kids are on strike. You know, they're demanding change. We've got mass radical protests happening around the world. So a lot is really happening. But I don't know about you, sometimes it feels it's kind of a bit of a fight between good and bad. And at the moment, sometimes I feel that, the good is not quite winning. So we're in a really interesting space, and when Donald Trump came to London the other day, we kind of were out there challenging him and his views. But I think what this articulates to me is that the fight for sustainability is going to happen in cities. Already 50% of the world lives in cities, and that's going to go up to 70%. So if we succeed in making our future sustainable, it's going to happen here in the cities. And so for that kind of reason, a few years ago, I set up something called the Global Destination Sustainability Index, which is a program to help cities measure, benchmark, and improve their sustainability strategies. When we started this, very few cities had a sustainable tourism or a sustainable MICE strategy. And so our purpose was to set up to inspire, engage, and enable cities, destinations to become better places to visit, to meet in, and to thrive in. And so that's what we're working. Today I think we're 58 cities around the world that are working on sustainability together. And it's become a community of knowledge and practice. And you can see some big names there. And I'm very proud that Goyang is one of the cities here and is a real leader in Korea and in Asia. So thank you to the mayor and the team, and thank you for Peter and all the leadership that he's bringing to make that a case. So what we do as a program is we help benchmark, we help assess, we consult to help the cities create more sustainable strategies for their destination, and then we share the word, we share the messages. And so that's kind of what I'd like to do a little bit today, is share some of the messages, some of the learnings that we've got out of this. I'm going to skip that. So how is Asia doing? How is Korea doing? When we analyze these cities, I'm going to go back to that last slide. Not sure how well you can see that at the back. But we look at 4 different areas. We analyze cities and benchmark cities on how well the city's environmental performance is doing, how well the city's social performance is doing. Then we look at the MICE world. So we look at the supplier world, how sustainable the hotels, the venues, the agencies, the airports, academia in terms of tourism and events. Then we look at the DMO, or the Convention Bureau, and we look at the strategy and the communications and what they're doing. So once we've done that, we can kind of create this a chart and a ranking. And so here you can see a little summary of where we're doing. And you know, the world leaders are in the Nordic countries, and that's not really a surprise. And the number 1 is a city called Gothenburg, which is the 2nd city of Sweden. So that's number 1. Number 2 is Copenhagen. But what's really good to see is that Goyang is around there, is 25th in our ranking. So it's a little bit above average, I believe. And I think it's going to actually do much better in this year's ranking, which is about to be announced at the ICA Congress in a few weeks' time, in a couple of months, actually. So from that, we can pull out some learnings. And I'd like to kind of focus on 3 things for the next few minutes that I've got with you. I'm going to talk about some mega trends that are happening that I think is really important that we understand these better. And I'm going to look at building blocks, what each destination, and I think each business should be doing. And then we're going to share some tactics. There's 8 tactics for change in this white paper. I'm actually going to only pick on a few here because of the time I've got. You can download this presentation and this learning by going to our website and downloading this report. So, megatrends are kind of dynamic forces. They're mega forces or transformative forces that happen that will change the way we live and work. They will cause pressure to our business models and our business systems. They will cause pressure from the people, from the governments, from the corporates. And we've identified 5 in this report, and I want to take you through those. And I think some of these you'll pretty much understand, but I want to try and pick up some numbers to really make this kind of worthwhile. I think you pretty much understand that the world is changing and our climate's changing, right? We're heading towards a much warmer planet, and it's getting warmer every day. And that climate breakdown, not sure how well you can see this at the back, is kind of in different ways. You know, at the moment we're racing up this way, and our temperature of our planet is going to warm up between 3 and 4 degrees. That will change the way we live, work, and play. If we change some things, we can start to reduce it, right? From 3 degrees down to 2 degrees. But where we really need to go is down here and reduce climate change to just a 1.5 degree temperature increase. But what does that mean? 1.5, 2, 3, it's just numbers, right? You know? At 1.5 degree, listen, in the next 50 years, the sea level rise will be 48 centimeters. At 4 degrees, that's 9 meters. At 3 degrees, where we're heading now, that's over 7 meters of sea level change from the beginning of last century to now. So that's quite a radical difference, isn't it? You know, that kind of affects Busan, Incheon, you know, a lot of the cities near you. If we look at just water supplies, at 4 degrees, that's catastrophic to the amount of water there is feeding us and giving us water to drink. Even at 1.5 degree, which is our kind of our ideal target, that's going to produce some severe water issues. On the flora and the fauna, at 4 degrees, half of the plants we know will face local extinction. At 1.5 degrees, 9 out of 10 coral reefs are at risk of severe degradation. So that's pretty fundamental. So really, we have to radically change. Business as usual, carbon emissions in the tourism industry is going up this way, going up. Bam! It's going up the top. So we have to learn to decarbonize the tourism and MICE sector. And that means reversing this curve and bringing the curve down to here. So in numbers, if we had to do this properly and right, that's a 45% decrease of carbon emissions by 2030. 45% decrease by 2030. And around 80% by 2050. Okay. Today, 52% of tourism emissions come from planes. In MICE, it's actually slightly higher in the event sector. 19% for transport. Hotels is about 27%. So we have to radically rethink that. In English, we have a phrase, it's called, there's an elephant in the room. An elephant in the room is a big subject that we ignore, but is just there. And I think in tourism and the MICE and events industry, at the moment, we're kind of ignoring that. Right? There is a bloody great big elephant, and it's sitting right in front of us. Our business models, your growth plan, is about flying people here. It's about putting people in hotels. So is our growth model future fit? Does it support a 45% decrease by 2030? That's the question, and which we really have to think about, because this changes our lives. This is about our survival. This is about extinction if we do this wrong. But if we do it right, it's about a lot of really exciting things. But this is not the only thing we're having to travel with. That's just one megaforce. Another megaforce is ecocide. We're wiping out the animals on this planet. Every 20 minutes, a species goes extinct. By 2050, there's going to be more plastic in the sea than fish. It's already a bit boring, pulling out plastic when you're fishing, but it's going to get worse. I mean, I'm sure you've been to some islands and just seen the plastic. But it's not just that. There's more and more people coming to this planet, 9, 10 billion by 2050. Every week, 1.5 million people are added to cities around the world. Most of that growth, admittedly, is going to happen in Asia and in Africa. For us Europeans who live in Europe, our population's going down. But with climate change, there's going to be a lot more immigration. Already in Europe, we have 5 million immigrants, and we complain about that. We say they're challenging our economies, things like that. By 2050, there's going to be up to 200 million. How does that change a tourist destination? Already in Greece and in Spain, we're complaining about our MICE destinations being affected. But when we've got, 10 times more, it's radical. I've just come back from Hong Kong to spend a couple of weeks there. Big stuff happening in Hong Kong. And, one of the key things, obviously, about China's sovereignty and the way China managed Hong Kong. But underneath, there's actually a bigger message that most people, I think, are missing. It's actually a lot of the youth in Hong Kong are complaining about inequality. And it's the same message we're seeing all around the world. The richest 1% of the world own 45% of the world's wealth. And that 64% of the world only own less than 2% of the wealth. So growth is not fair. Growth is not equal. So in the industry, we have to think about our growth strategies. Are they inclusive? Are they including people in the way we develop our industry? Where can we make this growth equal? Because only by being equal will it be sustainable and good. Not just for everyone, but for us. We've seen things such as over-tourism. I live in Barcelona, it's gone wrong. Our lack of planning, our lack of management of destinations have caused over-tourism. At the moment, we have, 86 million Chinese tourists. In 10 years, 11 years, that's going to go up to almost 400 million Chinese tourists. I don't know, how does that affect islands such as Jeju and Barcelona and Amsterdam? The big questions. And then we have this mass digitalization happening. So everything's kind of changing and going to get very dynamic. So really, we have to sit back and think for a minute, how do these trends affect our business today, next year, 2030, 2040, 2050? And we have to start planning for that much more and really challenging ourselves to think about, are we doing enough to make our businesses, our organizations, our destinations, our communities future fit? So that's the situation. The great news, because some of that can be a bit down and depressing, the great news is there's some cities that really get it. And so there's a lot of great learning that we can do and learn from that and get better at it. So in this white paper we wrote, we are kind of identified 4 building blocks. Take the lead, set up a master plan, integrate into your core strategy, and become a master collaborator. Okay. So let's look at that. So you've got cities who sit back and they're like, well, I'm from the Convention Bureau, it's not my responsibility. Or you've got the city going, well, it's not my responsibility. At some stage, someone has to take the lead, whether it's the mayor or the Convention Bureau or the DMO. So we need more leadership, and whether that's in a destination, whether that's in your business. So you may be sitting in your business and you're complaining, you're a PCO, that my boss doesn't do enough. Someone needs to stand up. We all need to stand up. We all need to speed up, and we all need to scale up the work that we're doing. Thailand is a great example, and the work that TSEB has done. Totally not the most sustainable destination in the world. Pretty big problems in Bangkok and other places like that. But that hasn't been an excuse for them to lead and develop and challenge and create a master plan. So they've had long-term vision. And this is the kind of work that Gothenburg, Copenhagen now doing. 5, 10-year visions for the MICE industry, not a 1-year tactical plan. The second key thing is once you have and you're starting to work on your master plan, it's got to be integrated into your core business strategy. So if we look at a city, we look at, maybe there's some challenges over inequality, maybe there's some challenges over green development. Well, into your MICE strategy, you need to start to work out what are the events I can bring into here that bring in new knowledge, new people, new investment, new skills to accelerate the development of my city. So it needs to be very, very integrated into your strategy. Gothenburg is one very good at that. There's no sustainability strategy and a business strategy, like in some places. It's the one thing together. So, and that has to be the same for whether you're a PCO or a hotel, whatever. You have to integrate your strategies. And then the next thing is about being a master collaborator and then really making that come together. So I'm going to use Sydney here as a great example. Sydney formed something called the Sustainable Destination Partnership. And they brought together over 40 event industry stakeholders, hotels, venues, government, people like that, to come and co-create a strategy. And then they use that strategy to roll out into their industry. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's a fantastic, probably one of the best projects around the world at the moment. So those are some of the building blocks, like the core stuff everyone has to do. You always need to do that in whatever business you are. A tactic I think is really, really useful is to integrate the Sustainable Development Goals. Is that something you hear a lot about, the SDGs in Korea? As I'm sure the mayor's team here, but who's heard of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals? Just put your hand up. Okay, so half of you. So the SDGs are a set of 17 goals released in 2015. Created by business, governments, NGOs. Over 20 million people participated in the creation of these. And they define the kind of perfect world, what 2030 should look like. It's a big vision document, really, and tackles and identifies 17 areas. These 17 areas are a great way to define sustainability in your destination or in your business. And someone like Copenhagen here took those 17 goals and then really looked at them and said, well, which ones are relevant to us as a tourism organization and as an events organization? And where can we use tourism and events to create change? Where can we use our business to really accelerate our society's journey towards the SDGs? And they did a great job. Many cities now are working on this. But you can do that in your business as well. Okay? So once you start to come up with, a goal, the SDGs allow you to focus on goals. But I think you also need to go back now and start to be more scientific. I think we all need to be more scientific. Do you remember before I said, we've got to have a 45% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030? Well, not many DMOs or not many businesses are really thinking about their business and working out what does that mean for us? What do we have to change? Sydney, who I mentioned earlier, is a great example. Sydney went out and they went, we have no clue what is our footprint. So they went out and they measured it. They found out that hospitality in Sydney is responsible for 11% of the carbon emissions. Okay. Ooh. So they worked out 11% of the carbon footprint of the whole city came from hospitality. 14% of the water consumption, 14. And a massive 46% of all the waste in Sydney came from hospitality, events and tourism, okay? Pretty big, eh? They thought it was much smaller. So when they realized that, they realized it was one of the top 3 sectors in the city that they needed to focus. So the mayor's team, he said, well, we need to do something about that. They'd already set a target to be carbon neutral by 2050. So then by 2030, we have to reduce at least the carbon emissions from our sector by 23%. We have to save at least 9% of water, and we have to divert at least 90% of waste. So very clear scientific-based goals that then they're using to shape the whole of the industry. And they're reaching out and working with that partnership they formed to make that happen. So I think that's world class. So if going, Peter, you want to get world class, that's kind of what you've got to do. You've got to work with the mayor's team here to really work out what the footprint is here, what it's going to be like when you've grown and you have all the new hotels and the new venues and Kintex is booming. What does that look like? And what do you have to do to get there in a sustainable fashion? The second, is that the third thing that cities that really leading in sustainability are doing is they've really mastered how to engage, listen, and talk with stakeholders. Copenhagen is another winner of this. They have a strategic stakeholder engagement program. There's actually 6 different types of research projects and questionnaires. And they've gone and did all that work, with the planners, with the tourists, with the locals, with the business people. And they've got all that data and put it together and created something called 2030, or 10X. So if you look at 10xcopenhagen.com, you'll see this. And they've used this to shape their 2030 growth strategy. Yeah? When you do this, you find that some people are really unhappy about some things. Some people are not. And often you find out what you think is an issue is not an issue, and what you don't think is an issue is an issue. So this is a really great way, and this is what we've got to get much better at doing. And not just talking to the people we always talk to. Yeah? Perhaps we will talk to our clients, but do we talk to our staff enough? Do we ask their opinion? Do we talk to the local community? Nearly always we forget the local community in the MICE industry and really ask their view. And that's going to be a big blush, I think, in the next few years, just as we've seen with tourism and over-tourism, Barcelona, Amsterdam, and other places. Some of those cities that are leading have become real masters at championing certification. Having a sustainable venue, hotel, agency doesn't always mean you're the best, most sustainable business in the world, but what it does do is make it a lot easier for the clients to choose. Okay? I used to run a team of 2,600 project managers, event managers at MCI. And trying to get them to work sustainably is a challenge, right? And if you ask them to ask each hotel 50 questions to analyze how sustainable they are, then they don't do it. It's like, oh, it's too complicated. Yeah. Well, you need to choose a sustainable catering company. Oh, here, could you complete this form with 20 questions, please? If you ask them, say, are you certified with a recognized GSTC approved certification, then that's an easy question to do. So that's what we need to do. So good destinations are scanning that out. They're looking for the quality GSTC approved certifications. And then they're championing that. They're reducing it down. They're not saying, look, do this. They're going out to the hotels and say, look, here's 3 or 4 very good certifications, or maybe here's only 2. Choose. And they're helping people make that decision. Good destinations are actually funding that. Like Sydney funds 100% of the first year of certification. Other cities in Bangkok funds, I think, 50% of the first 3 years certification. So there's a lot destinations can do to market this, to promote it, to communicate it. What else? Don't know about you, but I like food. Been in Korea, some pretty damn good food here. And I think every city, every destination has some amazing food. But often, over the last 20, 30 years, kind of our supply chains have got longer. We're losing some of the magic old recipes. We're losing some of the magic ingredients. There's, I live in Spain, we love tomatoes. But the average tomato, there's 3 or 4 tomatoes used when there's thousands of types of tomatoes, 90% of what we use comes from, I think, 10 different types of ingredients around the world. So destinations can play a key role in promoting a food revolution, bringing back hidden ingredients, hidden food, making the supply chain regenerative, not just taking from the planet, but actually coming up with practices that rebuild nature, regenerate the future, our environment. There's been some amazing work done here in Korea around forests, but you can do the same around food culture and agriculture. So someone like, there's a picture here from Slovenia, in a place called Ljubljana, which is the capital of Slovenia, one of the most forward-thinking places in the world for food culture. And they've gone out and they've created a key vision about a regenerative, local, healthy food vision and future. And what that's done is created new jobs, it's integrated more society, it's reduced the carbon emissions, and reduced environmental pressures. And it's not that difficult. This photo here is for something they do at least twice a year, is where they bring all the farmers in and then all the buyers from the hotels and the venues and the agencies. And they kind of do a matchmaking, a speed dating. You've kind of seen that at congresses. But it's like, I sell potatoes, Or, I'm a chef and I need to buy potatoes. So you cut out the middleman and you can uncover really unusual types of potatoes or unusual types of rices or unusual types of fish. But it allows more sustainable, more innovative, better. So it's fantastic. So that's the kind of stuff we're seeing there. Thailand has been really working on this a lot around, what do they call it? Rice to table, paddy to table. So Thailand's done some great work around this that I kick-started off there. But they've also done something really good around waste. They've, I'm sure you might have heard this, but 1/3 of all food is wasted, goes in the bin. In Asia, can be up to 45% in some countries. I'm not sure what it is here. But up to 45% of the food at an event, in a venue, is thrown away. Pretty tough, right? So Thailand came out with a program, and they created a standard an audit system, an IT platform, and they've rolled it out at the moment just to 10 hotels. But rolling it out to just 10 hotels, they managed to save €500,000. That's a lot of money. Not sure what that is in won, but that's a lot of money, right? So we all can do that. We all can think about what our role is to play in eliminating food waste. Not sure about you, but you probably, when you see a lot of those advertisements coming for a new car or a new shampoo, and it's got a picture of someone holding it in a tree in their hand or a water drop or something like that, do you believe that? Kind of sometimes we don't always believe these messages anymore. Kind of like a bit what we call cliche, stock sustainability. Well, I think our industry needs to get much better at telling these stories. We need to be much more creative, innovative, authentic, real, trustful in the way we communicate. I think we need to tell stories based on facts, and numbers, and science, and faces, people's journey. Some cities are doing that really well. Is Washington, DC, who's done a great job here. This is one of their websites, but they've got a really great, authentic website that tells lots of stories from different people, very personal and interesting. You've got Melbourne. Again, fantastic story. Bit different, beautiful kind of design here. Not quite summarized and clear. Great job there. Then you've got someone like Monaco, who's really realized that they can create a new story. You know, Monaco was based on luxury and excess, everything non-sustainable. And they realized that green can be the new glam. Glam is when you're like really, you know, looking good in your Ferrari. But they realized that you can be green is new glam. So, you know, we can have a Tesla. We can have a hotel which is 5-star that is super sustainable. We can have an amazing Michelin star dinner that is sustainable. And so they've integrated that into their messaging and their campaigns and done an amazing work. So I invite you to look for that. It's fun, it's innovative, it's stylish, it's design, it's better. You know, and it really fits their brand. So then kind of the last kind of bit here really is that it's good to do that, but at the end of the day, we have to kind of collect the data and report on our journey. How well are we doing? You know, if we have a goal for 2030 to get to there, step by step, how are we doing? How have we reduced our carbon emissions or social inclusiveness, or how much money we generated for the local economies? So destinations that get that are starting to report regularly. So this is a report from Gothenburg. Follows international standards, very clear, nice design. That's the kind of thing that we have to do. So kind of summarizing this up a little bit, there is an elephant in the room, okay? Our business model is around flying people and creating carbon emissions. We need to change, all of us, whether you're in an agency or a venue, we need to really drive innovation. We need much better government policy. We need better reporting and benchmarking. We need to optimize our buildings and our events. We need to get rid of waste and excess. We need better food. We need renewable energy on every rooftop. We need new low-carbon fuels to fly our planes. We're going to need some carbon tax and some regulation and legislation. We need to offset our emissions. And ultimately, we're going to have to change some of our behavior. But, and here's the good thing, if we do that, the future is actually better. The future is healthier, it's regenerative, it's competitive. And this is really where cities and some businesses in our industry get it. They realize if you do this right, you can attract clients, you can attract new investment. Now, most of the big investment funds won't put money into a fund, into a project, unless there's a sustainability strategy. Lots of event sponsors now are starting not to put money into events unless there's a sustainability strategy. So that's important. If this is done right, it's about job creation. It's about attracting talent. 80% of millennials, the under kind of 30s, are looking for a company to have a really good sustainability strategy if they're going to work with them or not. It's about delivering social impact and looking after this unfortunate and bringing them into your business models. It's about regenerating our planet. And if you do all that well, you build up the value of your business and your brand, whether you're an association or a corporate or a city. So, as my friend Elvis says, he says, a little less conversation, a little more action, please. I think it's time for us all to follow the King's words, and let's stop talking and let's get into some action. It's time for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is your wake-up call. There's the report. You can download it at gdsindex.com. There's my email address. You're welcome to contact me, and I look forward to being with you for the next couple of days. We've got a workshop tomorrow that's going to go into this in much more detail. I'm really going to go through this and talk and discuss this in much more detail. So, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. 네, 여러분 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. Thank you. 네, 고맙습니다. 오늘 기조 강연 또 문을 열어주셨는데요. 강연 듣다 보니까 참 준비해야 할 것들도 많고 또 해야 할 일들도 참 많구나 생각이 문득 듭니다. 지속 가능성이라는 주제로 또 이야기를 해주셨는데 여러 도시들이 또 함께 추진하고 있는 좋은 사례들 소개를 해주셨죠. 아무래도 우리 사회가 어떤 흐름을 갖고 흘러가는지 메가 트렌드를 이해해야 우리가 산업을 이끌고 또 도시를 준비할 수 있다고 짚어주셨는데 뭐 기후 변화라던가 우리가 직접적으로 느끼고 있는 환경 변화라던가 많은 빠르게 변화하고 있는 것들 속에서 우리가 어떻게 또 경쟁력을 갖출 수 있을지 말씀해 주셨습니다. 어떤 영향을 미치고 있고 또 지역사회가 그 계획에 어떻게 움직이고 있는지 끊임없이 점검을 하라고 또 언급을 해주셨는데 말씀을 듣다 보니까 문득 저희가 잘 알고 있는 그 아프리카 속담이 생각이 나죠. 멀리 가려면 함께 가라 라는 또 속담이 생각이 나는데요. 오늘 함께 해주신 각 분야의 전문가분들 모두 함께 협력을 통해서 더 멀리 가는 길 찾아가셨으면 좋겠습니다. 오늘 또 바쁘신 와중에도 함께 해주셨는데요. 고양시 이재준 시장님 다음 일정으로 인해서 먼저 아쉽지만 잠시 자리를 이석하도록 하겠습니다. 자, 오늘 또 함께 해주셔서 포럼 더욱더 빛내주셨는데요. 대단히 고맙습니다. 자, 저희는 환송을 잠시 하도록 하겠습니다. 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 대단히 고맙습니다. 네, 시장님 감사합니다. 자, 모두가 함께 우리가 하고 있는 일들을 전문가처럼 해내면서 또 협력할 수 있는 것, 그것이 바로 핵심이 아닐까라는 생각이 드는데요. 기조 강연을 통해서 저희가 지금부터는 이 주제를 가지고 조금 더 심도 있는 논의들 이어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 지금 단상 위에 좌석을 좀 준비를 해주셨죠. 지금부터는 패널 토론 이어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 자, 먼저 첫 번째 패널 토론 수고해 주실 분들 제가 먼저 소개를 드리도록 하겠습니다. 이번 패널 토론의 좌장은 경희대학교 김철원 교수님께서 수고를 해 주실 예정이시고요. 또 앞서서 발표를 해 주셨던 가이 비구드 매니징 디렉터님, 그리고 권나경 경기도의회 의원님, 그리고 송규근 고양시 의회 의원님, 그리고 글로벌 서스테이너블 투어리즘 카운슬의 랜디 더반 대표님께서 패널로 함께해 주시겠습니다. 자, 5분 먼저 단상으로 모시겠습니다. 단상에 준비된 좌석에 착석을 부탁드리겠습니다. 자, 교수님 그리고 패널분들, 네, 좌석에 착석을 부탁드리겠습니다. Could you please come up to the stage and please take your seats. 자, 첫 번째 패널 토론 수고해 주실 5분을 단상에 모셨습니다. 자, 그러면 여러분 큰 박수와 함께 첫 번째 패널 토론 시작하겠습니다. 네, 교수님 부탁드리겠습니다. 자, 마이크를 한번 점검을 좀 부탁을 드리겠습니다. 네, 마이크 점검을 좀 부탁을 드리겠습니다. 교수님 먼저 마이크 전달 드리겠습니다.
Hello. 예, 안녕하세요. 이번 세션에 자장을 맡게 된 경희대학교 김철원 교수입니다. 하여튼 오늘 자장을 맡게 돼서 영광으로 생각합니다. 감사합니다. Okay, I'm gonna speak Korean. Okay, no problem. Okay. 우리 가이 비구드는 이제 여러 번 만났는데 하여튼 이 서스테이너블 마이스, 서스테이너블 이벤트 이 분야의 대가시고 오늘 정말 중요한 많은 얘기를 해주신 것 같습니다. 사실 우리 서스테이너빌리티는 많이 쓰고 있지만 지속 가능성에 대해서 많이 쓰고 있지만 굉장히 어떻게 보면 실천적 관점에서는 생소한 단어고 어떻게 보면 실천하기 어려운 이런 측면도 있는 것 같습니다. 우리가 마이스 산업, 특히 이제 고양시 같이 이렇게 세컨 티어 도시에서는 이코노믹 임팩트, 경제적인 어떤 영향, 잡 창출하고 지역이 발전하고 그야말로 우리가 사회적 패러다임인 우리가 도미넌트 소셜 패러다임이라고 하는데 거기에서 강조하는 게 성장과 개발입니다. 아직까지 이 세컨 티어 도시들은 이 성장과 개발에 굉장히 익숙한 가운데 이제 마이스 산업을 정말 비즈니스 관점에서 접근하면서 사실 뭐 클라이밋 체인지니 CO2 이거 탄소 배출이니 이런 것에 대해서 굉장히 생소하게 또 실천하기 어려운 과제로 생각을 하고 있습니다. 그러나 이제 오늘 고양시가 큰 주제를 이 서스테이너빌리티를 얘기를 했는데 전 세계적인 트렌드는 이 지속 가능성은 아까 가이 비구드가 결론에서 얘기했지만 새로운 어떤 영역을 창출해서 경쟁력을 갖춘다는 거죠. 그래서 서스테이너빌리티와 컴패리티브니스는 굉장히 동일한 어떤 관점으로 오늘날 이렇게 생각을 하고 많은 인더스트리에서 발전시켜 나가고 있습니다. 사실 이제 고양시 하면은 아파트가 굉장히 많고 이 지속 가능한 마이스를 어떻게 정착시킬 것인가 상당히 이 포럼을 통해서 중요한 과제가 아닌가 생각합니다. 오늘 그 가이 비구드께서 굉장히 다양한 이 말씀을 해주셨는데 사실 2012년도 런던 올림픽을 계기로 ISO 2012 해가지고 지속 가능한 매니지먼트에 대해서 이렇게 가이드라인도 발표를 하고 많은 기업이라든가 또 이런 센터라든가 이 데스티네이션이 그 가이드라인에 따라서 또 많은 실천 노력을 하고 있고 가이 비구드가 주도하고 있는 이런 GDS 인덱스들을 또 많이 또 따르고 있습니다. 사실 그 2016년도에 그 런던에서 그 그랑프리 있잖아요. 그 포뮬러 1, 포뮬러 2라고 개최가 됐습니다. 포뮬러 2. 그래가지고 이 자동차 경주가 굉장히 태양광이라든가 또 뭐 이 음식도 굉장히 뭐 200이 뭐 그리고 또 그 이런 어떤 지역 주민이 참여하는 이런 관점에서 추진하는 것들을 볼 수가 있었습니다. 그래서 이 서스테이너빌리티는 굉장히 이노베이션과 연결이 되어 있고 또 컴패리티브니스와 연결되어 있고 그리고 이제 이런 마이스 행사가 엔터테이닝이라든가 이런 익사이팅한 이런 측면도 같이 갖고 있다는 측면에서 굉장히 좋은 케이스가 되고 있습니다. 그래서 오늘 지속 가능성을 이제 얘기를 하면서 지속 가능성의 기본 원칙은 세 가지 필러가 있습니다. 경제적인 측면 그리고 이 사회문화적인 측면 아까 뭐 비구드에서 계속 말씀해 주신 환경적인 측면이 있습니다. 그래서 이 세 가지 필러를 그 축을 어떻게 조화해 나갈 것인가가 굉장히 중요한 과제고 이거를 어떻게 마이스 산업에 전략적으로 적용할 것인가 중요한 이슈가 아닌가 생각이 됐습니다. 그래서 오늘 이렇게 이 저명한 발표자께서 발표하신 내용을 가지고 우리 경기도의회 권 의원님 그리고 고양시의 송의근 위원님께서 좋은 어떤 이 토론에 대해서 말씀해 주시고 또한 우리 자주 뵀는데 지속 가능성 랜디 더방 교수께서 특히 이제 SDG (Sustainable Development Goals이 이제 마이스와 어떻게 연결을 시켜서 발전시키는 관점들을 잘 얘기해 주시라 믿겠습니다. 우선 패널 분들에게 큰 박수를 부탁드리고요. 그래서 권 의원님께서 한번 말씀해 주시겠습니까?
들리시나요? 예, 반갑습니다. 저는 경기도의회 권락용 도의원입니다. 오늘 사실 여기 많은 분들이 오셨는데 저 또한 또 이 귀한 시간 내서 여기 오신 분들께 진심으로 환영한다는 말씀 드리고요. 컨벤션 저는 도시계획이 전공이라 지금 한 내용이 사실 도시계획에도 접목이 되고 또 컨벤션에도 접목이 되는 그런 사안입니다. 여러분께 하나 그냥 질문을 한번 드릴게요. 여기서 갑자기 2시간 동안 정전이 되면 여러분들은 뭘 하실 겁니까? 갑자기 여기서요. 제가 이 얘기를 드린 거는 아까 인덱스, 4가지의 인덱스에 있어서 평가가 되지만 사실 빠져있는 부분이 하나 있다면 비상 상황에 대한 대비가 굉장히 부족하다는 그 지표가 있었으면 좋겠다는 말씀을 드린 겁니다. 왜 그런 말씀을 드리냐면요. 예를 들어 우리가 이번에 남북대화 있을 때 킨텍스에서 전부 그걸 생중계로 해서 전 세계를 내보냈죠. 그런데 만약에 정전이 된다면 한번 생각을 해보십시오. 어떻게 될까? 그래서 저 지표에는 자연환경, 도시시설 여러 가지 지표가 있지만 비상 상황 시 어떻게 대처할 것인가에 대한 인덱스는 빠져 있습니다. 제가 이 말씀을 왜 드리냐면 2018년도에 여러분 큰 이벤트로 보면은 CES라는 거 많이 들어보셨죠? 라스베이거스에서 열렸던 CES 2018년에요. 실제 일어났던 일입니다. 라스베가스에서는 비가 내리지 않아서 비에 대한 대비가 별로 없었습니다. 근데 그 전날에 호우가 내렸고요. 실제로 우리나라 대기업들이 모두 참여한 삼성전자, LG가 모두 참여한 그 CES에서 아침 11시부터 오후 1시까지 2시간 동안 정전 사태가 일어났습니다. 비가 내렸어요. 전 세계 많은 기업과 업체들이 참여했는데 순간 정전이 되니까 공황 상태에 빠졌습니다. 실제 저도 거기 가 있었었고요. 2시간 동안 뭘 해야 되는지를 모르는 겁니다. 그래서 업체에서 다 대피하고 나중에는 비 때문에 정전이 됐다는 건 발표가 됐지만 전 세계에서 모인 그 이벤트를 즉흥적으로 바로 어떻게 대비할 거는 아무 누구도 생각을 못했던 겁니다. 실제 만약에 킨텍스에서 이런 일이 벌어졌다 했을 때는요, 특히나 남북대화가 있었던 그런 큰 이벤트가 있을 때 그런 상황이 발생된다면 그거는 국가 이미지와도 직결되는 그런 엄청난 일입니다. 그래서 국가 기본적인 시설에 있어서 저희는 이제 도시계획 시설이라 하는데요. 도시계획 시설에 있어서는 통신, 그다음에 그 정전 사태 이런 걸 하기 위해 양선으로, 즉 한쪽이 먹혔을 땐 다른 쪽으로 하는 이중화를 합니다. 그래서 예전에 우리 한번 그 전화국에 불났을 때도 난리 난 적 한번 있었지 않습니까? 그만큼 기반 시설에 대한 이중화는 굉장히 중요한 내용입니다. 통신과 전기에 대해서는요. 그래서 인덱스에는 그런 비상 상황 시에 대한 대피 능력, 그다음에 막을 수 있는 능력이 꼭 인덱스에 들어가야 된다는 저는 주문을 좀 드리도록 하겠고요. 두 번째는 여러분들 한번 생각해 보십시오. 여러분들이 한번 기업 대표라고 한번 생각해 보세요. 서울에 사는 여러분들한테 킨텍스에 가서 행사할래, 부산에 가서 행사할래 하면요, 부산에 가서 행사한다는 분들이 많습니다. 단순히 컨벤션과 그런 전시에 대해서만 바라보면 킨텍스가 당연 우리나라 1위입니다. 근데 개개인의 어디서 할래 선택권을 주면요, 부산이 좀 유리한 게 사실입니다. 왜 그럴까요? 서울에서 만약에 있다면 킨텍스 가면 하루밖에 안 줍니다. 갔다 와, 전시해. 근데 부산에 간다 오면 보통 1박 2일을 줍니다. 그렇지 않겠습니까? 그러면은 저녁에 소주 한잔하고 해운대라도 한번 가볼 수 있는 겁니다. 그래서 선호하는 게 다르다는 거예요. 기반적인 시설만 가지고 했을 때는 킨텍스가 우리나라 최고지만 그 외적인 조건을 바라봤을 때는 사람 심리상 쉬고 싶고 여러 가지 부가적인 요소, 즉 아까 말씀드렸던 관광의 개념이 반드시 들어가는 겁니다. 그래서 저는 고양시가 이런 좋은 시설과 고양시가 지금 가지고 있는, 이번에 또 이상열 단장님 고생하셔서 우리 지표도 25위로 올라가고 목표도 20위로 한다고 들었습니다. 그것을 실질적으로 세계 최고가로 이룰 수 있을 때는 반드시 관광적인 요소가 같이 들어가야 됩니다. 그래서 사람들이 구경을 하고 전시를 하고 상업적인 행위를 다 하고도 끝나고 나서는 적어도 구경거리가 있는 도시로 만드는 것이 우리 컨벤션 시티로 만드는 가장 핵심적인 요소라고 생각합니다. 그래서 원래 시장님이 계셔야 되는데 시장님이 이 말씀을 안 듣고 가셨지만 이재준 시장님 같은 경우도 경기도 의회에서 의원을 2번 하시고 시장님이 되신 케이스입니다. 그래서 밑바닥 정서를 다 아시고 이런 비전도 말씀을 하셨기 때문에 저는 앞으로 고양시가 좀 더 발전할 수 있다고 보고요. 이 말씀을 드리면서도 실제 라스베가스나 또 마이애미 이런 도시들은 컨벤션으로 굉장히 앞서가 있는 도시인데 특히나 자연적인 요소와 관광 요소가 너무도 잘 들어있다. 그러다 보니 마이애미도 중남미 시장을 포함한 모든 의료기구, 가전에 대해서는 앞서가는 그런 컨벤션 도시가 됐고요. 라스베가스도 그런 만큼 고양시가 앞으로 좀 더 이런 지금 말씀해 주신 좋은 그런 내용과 그리고 관광 요소를 꼭 할 수 있는 내용이 접목된다면, 또 지금도 계획이 돼 있습니다만 좀 더 발전된 것이 있다면 고양시는 앞으로 컨벤션으로 더욱 발전된 도시로 될 수 있다. 그런 말씀을 드리면서 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다.
예, 감사합니다. Guy, what do you think about what the chairman said? Is actually according to the ISO 2011. As I remember, there is a contingency plan, actually, but you did not mention is today. But that is a ISO as 2011 has it. Also, as I mentioned before, is sustainability lead to competitiveness. But sometimes we cannot agree with that. It's competitiveness is really related to generate the visitors, money, and something like that. So if you focus on sustainability, sometimes we lose competitiveness. What do you think about that? Is what I said and as the chairman said.
So I think there's a couple of points there. So if you look at the ISO standard, health and safety is part of it. If you look at the GSTC destinations criteria, health and safety and contingency planning is part of that. It's something we look at, so it's very embedded into our work, so it is important. So I think the second thing about sustainability is, creating a sustainable plan for the future is not a tick box exercise. There's some big decisions and some tough decisions to be made, and sometimes they're a trade-off. It's not black and it's not white. There's kind of this grey shade that you have to go through, right? So it is a journey. You look at an electric car. Is buying a Tesla the solution today? It's the solution today, but I'm sure in a few years' time we're going to say, oh, look at all the problems we got with all these batteries. There's stuff that's going to come out, and so we have to think about this. But I still think in the master plan of it all, destinations that have a clear sustainability strategy are more competitive. If you look at the Ecotop 50 ranking, pretty much those top 20 cities are some of the leaders in sustainability. So I think it's very linked.
Randy, what do you think?
Good afternoon. Nice to be here with you. Annyeonghaseyo. Nice to be back in Goyang, my second time actually. Just briefly on the organization that I operate, Guy has mentioned a couple of times, GSTC, the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. We're an NGO that was created by the United Nations system to create baseline standards for sustainability in travel and tourism. And we have two sets of GSTC criteria, one for industry that impacts is guidance for hotels and for land transport to be more sustainable. And the third that we developed later is destination criteria, as Guy just mentioned. So these are baseline standards for any type of touristic destination to follow as sustainability standards. So Guy and I have been talking for several years, trying to figure out how to better integrate our kind of umbrella destination standards for any type of touristic destination with the MICE world. I'm sorry I can't stay here and join you for Destination Week. I have to get to Incheon Airport in a few hours to fly away, but nice to be here with you. So let me just add a couple of things to add to your very excellent presentation, Guy, to just build on a couple of thoughts. One is what you talked about in terms of carbon emissions and travel and tourism. I think that all of travel and tourism in all forms is at tremendous risk, as you said, and I want to build upon that. We don't know exactly the carbon emissions from travel and tourism. UNWTO and UNEP looked at it in 2005, and Australian and Dutch, two different studies in 2018 from the Netherlands and one from Australia have come out and said it's at least 8% from the 5% that we thought in 2005. It's going up. If you just think for a moment, the explosion of the big growth of travel in general, led by China, but all of Asia, huge demand in growth. But what happens is that as a society develops its economy, all the Asian economies are doing this, where a country reaches a point of economic development and they get discount carriers. You look at the transformative power of AirAsia, what that has done. But what's little known is that suddenly, just in the past year, VietJet has grown larger than AirAsia because the Vietnamese economy has grown so much. So the volume of aviation is huge. And I think that poses a tremendous risk to add upon what you said, Guy, is that most industries are getting cleaner. We're moving towards solar and wind and electric vehicles and so forth. But travel and tourism is fully dependent upon aviation, and aviation is not getting much cleaner. Aviation is experimenting with biofuels. It's doing a little bit with electric. Clean solutions to aviation are very far off. And as climate change impacts worsen, I predict that societies are going to be more concerned about this, and people may feel guilty for travel. In the past year in the Nordic countries, there's a wave of discussion. People are talking about not flying. They feel guilty flying. 4 years ago, London Heathrow Airport started plans for the expansion of a runway at Heathrow Airport, and a citizens' protest developed that has stopped the additional runway at Heathrow Airport based on the logic to say it's only rich people and extra business travel that could really travel more by video conference or travel less and use video conference. We don't need another runway because we shouldn't use the carbon emissions. So already in Europe, we're seeing these citizens' protest movements against the growth of aviation. So to follow up on your point, this puts all of travel and tourism at tremendous risk. If the traveler is feeling guilty about travel, and that won't, everything that happens in sustainability in all sectors starts in Europe and spreads to the rest of the world. So this could be a predictive factor for what happens. But as climate change impacts increase, everybody around the world, no matter how they feel about these issues today, are going to feel them more strongly tomorrow. And so with aviation remaining dirty, that puts us at greater risk. So our message to destinations is, on the ground, we can be clean. Hotels can operate very sustainably, land transport can operate very sustainably, because the cost of electric vehicles comes down every year. I go to Jeju-do, where you and I met a few years ago at the UN Training Center, and what Jeju-do is doing is remarkable in terms of setting their targets for carbon neutral and electric vehicles. Every destination in the world should do this, because electric vehicles are much more inexpensive every year. Everybody can afford them now. Developing countries can afford electric vehicles. All the unit prices are coming down. So if we do everything we can possibly do on land to make the experience greener, that will counter to some degree the guilt and the shame and the environmental costs that will continue with aviation. So I think it's an extremely important issue. There's an opportunity here for a destination. If you can show that you're very green with good, clean energy, local land transport, and good, clean hotels and venue space, then you help offset the pain that the world feels from climate change and from this perception that travel is dirty. So this is a huge issue. Thank you for mentioning certification as a way to verify. We're building a framework where more and more businesses now indeed do measure their supply chain, how sustainable it is. We're now seeing some of the world's largest travel companies are using our framework of a verifiable certification scheme for preferential purchasing. For example, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, the second largest cruise line in the world, an American company, but now their big growth is in China. They sail out of Shanghai with some of the largest cruise ships in the world now. They sail around Japan and Korea and the Chinese coast for 8 months a year. Then they go to Singapore and they go to Penang. And the Chinese love to cruise, and this is growing. They now give preferential contracting to tour operators that operate the shore excursion if that tour operator is certified to our scheme. So we're building this market access scheme. So what you say about certification is also we're developing that whole mechanism. And TUI Group, one of the largest travel companies in the world out of Europe, and 150 brands all over the world, including India and many other countries in the world, they're showing preferential contracting. So certification is a valuable thing in terms of the verification, as you said, but also on market access because it is an indicator. So we've got other corporations coming online. We expect some significant announcements in the coming world. So thank you for all that. So I'm sure my time is up. I'll stop there. But.
Okay.
Just to add to that, in Sweden this year, in the first 6 months, flight travel reduced or crashed 8%. I think it's real, the risk. 8% down in 6 months flight travel in Sweden.
Okay. Having said that, your first visit in Goyang, right? What is your first impression about Goyang?
It's my second time in Goyang.
Too many buildings? Huh?
Both times in this hotel, and I was speaking on this stage about 4 years ago.
4 years ago?
So yes, the Kintex, very impressive. It's a lovely place. You need more hotels.
지속 가능성을 발전시키려면 이게 브랜드 밸류, 브랜드 이미지가 is for increasing a principle of sustainability. 고양 시티 should build a brand value. But in my opinion, it's very difficult for Goyang City has to build up brand value in terms of sustainability because of a lot of concrete cement buildings. Is a landscape is not does not look is sustainable and natural. So how can Goyang overcome these landscape, the presence of the city,
I think all of you Koreans undervalue
and actually
how
that's going to be
sustainable.
related to generate and attract visitors.
Yeah, but I think what I wanted to say is all you Koreans undervalue how sustainable you are. You mentioned food waste. I've been spending a lot of time in Korea in recent years. Nobody touches food waste in the world like Korea. I just read something in the New York Times about South Korea's global leader on food waste. You recycle better than most countries in the world. You do so many things better on sustainability. You don't even know. You could promote those things. So if people think of Korea as asphalt and tall buildings and so forth, you've got a message to deliver that 64% of your country is covered with trees and you recycle well and you're green, you've got fabulous public transport, you're one of the most sustainable countries in the world. Promote that. Don't use the word sustainable. Talk about clean and green and authentic and more green.
Okay.
You have a big branding opportunity.
Okay, thank you. 우리 송 의원님 어떻게 또 발표하신 거에 대해서 이렇게 좀 말씀해 주시기 바라겠습니다.
네, 안녕하십니까. 저는 이곳 고양시 의회 환경경제위원회 소속 위원이자 도시브랜드 연구회 회장으로 지금 활동하고 있습니다. 제가 활동하고 있는 환경경제위원회는 일자리 창출이나 기업 및 소상공인 지원 그리고 전략산업 등을 고민하는 동시에 기후대기를 비롯한 자원순환이나 생태하천 등에 대한 환경정책에 대한 고민도 하고 있습니다. 물론 농업이라든가 녹지, 공원 조성 관리 이런 부분도 포함하고 있고요. 저기 앞에 계신 의원님들이 저랑 같이 활동하시는 소관 상임위 위원님들이십니다. 때론 개별적으로, 때론 융복합적으로 연계되어 있는 일련의 소관 업무들이 오늘 이렇게 지속가능이라고 하는 지속가능한 마이스 산업이라는 의제로 통합돼서 논의될 수 있다는 사실에서 저는 개인적으로 무척 놀랍고 고무적입니다. 사실 환경경제위원이긴 했지만 지금껏 이것들을 어떻게 연결시킬 거에 대한 고민이 있었습니다. 서로 협업시키고 시너지 효과를 창출해야 하는데 쉽지 않더라고요. 솔직히 얘기하면 사실 고민 자체가 엄두가 안 날 정도였습니다. 너무 많은 의제들이 존재하고 있어서요. 그런데 오늘 이렇게 귀한 자리를 통해서 그간 저에게 흩어져 있던 어떤 이런 생각들을 정리할 수 있는 기회가 되었고 그랬기 때문에 얼마나 감사한지 모르겠습니다. 이렇게 귀한 기회 허락해 주신 그리고 좋은 강연해 주신 우리 비구두님께도 그리고 행사 마련해 주신 모든 분들께 다시 한번 감사드립니다. 저는 동료 의원들과 함께 우리 고양시의 도시 브랜드를 창출하고 그 위상을 제고하기 위해 여러 전략들에 대해서 연구를 하고 있는데요. 잘 아시다시피 도시 브랜드는 브랜딩하는 데 있어서 여러 주제와 수단들이 존재합니다. 오늘을 계기로 이 마이스 산업, 그중에서도 친환경 컨벤션이라든가 그린 컨벤션으로 대변되는 이 지속 가능한 마이스 산업 역시 우리 고양시의 브랜드 가치를 높이는 데 유용한 수단이 될 수 있다라는 생각을 하게 됩니다. 우리 도시 브랜드 연구에서 이 지속 가능한 마이스 산업에 대해서 미처 다루지 못했습니다. 이에 우리 관련 부서인 전략산업과라든가 고양 컨벤션 부로 이상열 단장님께 조금 송구하다는 말씀도 드리겠습니다. 계속 노력하겠습니다. 저는 오늘 강연을 들으면서 역시 도시 브랜딩에 대한 주제로 귀결되게 됩니다. 주제하는 바와 같이 도시 브랜드에는 세 가지 핵심 요소가 필요합니다. 그중에 첫 번째는 일관성이고 그리고 차별성이고 그리고 타당성입니다. 그래서 저는 지속가능한 마이스 산업을 통해서 우리 고양시가 도시의 브랜드 가치를 높이는 데 있어서 이 지속가능 발전 그리고 이것이 접목된 마이스 산업이 과연 우리 고양시의 브랜딩 자원이나 방편이 될 수 있을까란 내외부자들 그리고 이해관계자들의 공감대 형성으로부터 출발할 수 있을까라는 생각이 듭니다. 안타깝게도 최근 대두된 미세먼지라든가 기타 환경보전 등에 대한 우리 국민의 관심이라든가 이런 이해가 증폭된 것에 비해서 이것이 마이스 산업과 어떻게 연계될 수 있는가에 대한 우리의 인식은 여전히 부족해 보입니다. 특히 퀸텍스를 보유하고 있는 우리 고양시의 독보적인 지위에도 불구하고 잘 아시다시피 앞서 말씀 나왔다시피 숙박시설 등의 제반 인프라 등이 부족해서 그간 고양시에서 개최된 수많은 마이스 행사가 그 이상의 부가가치를 창출하는 데 어려움이 있었습니다. 이러한 한계가 속도감 있게 개선되는 건 역시 여전히 미비한 실정입니다. 그래서 우리가 마이스 산업하면 굴뚝 없는 황금 산업이라고 하는데 그것이 우리 고양시에서는 여전히 수사뿐인 외침은 아닌가라는 아쉬움도 있습니다. 우리에게 킨텍스로 대변되는 마이스 산업이 그 발전 가능성이 있어서는 일종의 지금 시점에서는 약간 학습된 무기력 또는 피로감 이런 문제까지도 지금 온 게 아닌가 싶습니다. 따라서 우선 고양시에서는 이런 제반 인프라를 구축하는 데서 속도감을 내야 할 것입니다. 그리고 고양시 관내의 마이스 관련 이해관계자들 그리고 내부자인 고양 시민과 외부자인 방문객들이나 투자자들에게는 그 인식 속에서 고양시가 마이스 산업을 중심으로 도시의 성장이 추동될 수 있다라는 것, 그리고 그것의 지속 발전 가능성이라는 것이 아젠다로 투영될 수 있다라는 공감대 형성 그리고 확산될 수 있다는 것이 선제되어야 할 것입니다. 다음으로 저는 일관성에 대한 이야기를 하고 싶습니다. 제가 도시 브랜드 연구에 활동을 하면서 가장 놀랍고도 안타까웠던 것 중에 하나가 바로 도시 브랜드 슬로건은 존재하는데 도시 브랜드 정체성은 발굴이나 형성하는 데 있어서 그것을 총괄하는 부서가 부재하다는 것이었습니다. 잘 아시다시피 도시 브랜드 슬로건은 대내외적으로 도시 브랜드의 정체성을 대표하여 표현하는 일종의 수단일 뿐입니다. 그리고 이것이 도시 브랜드 자체를 말하는 것은 아닙니다. 다시 말해서 하나의 도시가 자기 도시를 브랜딩하기 위해서는 우선 정체성 형성 자원이 될 수 있는 유무형의 자원들을 리스트업하고 그 중에서 실현 가능한 자원들 중에 제1성으로 내세울 것을 정체성으로 선정하고 그리고 슬로건화하는 것입니다. 그리고 그 결과물로서 도시의 내외부자들에게 도시의 특정 이미지로 형성되는 것입니다. 따라서 이러한 일련의 과정들을 도시 브랜드 위원회라고 하는 컨트롤 타워 역할을 하는 기구에서 심도 있게 그리고 보다 전략적으로 지휘 통제해야 한다는 생각이 듭니다. 각 부서와 기관마다 파편화되어 있는 콘텐츠와 자원들이 최종적으로 한 도시의 브랜드 정체성으로 일맥하게 합치되고 그리고 그것이 효과를 발휘하는 날까지 일관성이 있게 추진될 때 비로소 도시 브랜드라는 것이 형성되고 그 이미지는 강화될 수 있을 것입니다. 그리고 앞서 말씀하신 바와 같이 이것이 정량적 성과 분석으로 귀결되어야 합니다. 이런 측면에서 우리 고양시는 여전히 갈 길이 멉니다. 제가 고양시 의원이기 때문에 이런 얘기를 하게 되는데요. 고양시에 개별적으로 산재되어 있는 각 부서나 기관의 브랜딩 자원들이 그 부서에서는 하나의 콘텐츠로서 개발되지만 이것이 말씀드린 것처럼 통합기구의 지휘와 통제 아래 통할 아래 서로 연결되고 궁극적으로 하나의 새로운 콘텐츠로 완성되고 재탄생되어야 한다고 생각합니다. 그리고 그것이 실제로 구현되는 결과물은 마이스 산업이 유인한 방문객들의 체류 시간을 늘려서 그들의 지갑을 열고 소비 지출을 확대하는 것으로 이어져야 한다고 생각합니다. 이에서 제가 몸담고 있는 도시 브랜드 연구회에서는 조례 제정을 계획하고 있습니다. 빠르면 올 10월 회기 안에 통과를 목표로 준비하고 있는데요. 조례가 제정되는 것을 계기로 우리 고양시의 여러 도시 브랜드 자원들이 함께 융합되고 시너지 발휘할 수 있기를 기대합니다. 아시다시피 새로운 것은 없습니다. 아니 그것이 급한 것이 아닙니다. 앞서 강사님께서 주창하신 바와 같이 아는 것을 실행에 옮기는 것이 우리에게 필요합니다. 이미 우리가 보유하고 있는 유무형의 귀한 자원들을 활용해서 어떻게 브랜드 이미지를 강화하고 경제 활성화로 이어질 수 있는가의 문제입니다. 일례로 일산 호수공원은 새롭게 만들어진 것이 아닙니다. 이미 우리 고양시에서 최일성의 브랜드 이미지로 존재하는 것입니다. 때문에 이 호수공원을 중심으로 여타의 다른 스토리텔링과 컨텐츠들이 어떻게 결합하느냐가 우리의 목표인 것입니다. 그래서 말씀드린 것처럼 마이스 참가자들의 체류 시간을 늘려서 지갑을 열게 하는 것이 우리의 목표입니다. 이러한 지속가능한 마이스 산업의 활성화 방안으로 저는 우리 고양시 컨벤션 부로를 필두로 한 PCO 및 PEO 분들에게 감히 부탁드리겠습니다. 킨텍스를 기반으로 한 메가 또는 메머드 마이스 외에도 도심 속 다른 장소에서의 스토리와 특색이 있는 컨텐츠가 공존하는 이른바 일상의 마이스를 확대해 주시길 부탁드립니다. 오늘의 주제인 지속 가능한 마이스 산업이 정말로 지속 가능하려면 일상으로부터의 확장이 중요하다고 생각합니다. 작게는 특정 커뮤니티나 마을 단위에서의 회의나 전시 등에서부터 출발해서 해당 주제와 컨셉에 맞는 그 개최지가 예를 들어서 박물관이라든가 우리 행주산성과 같은 역사 유적지 등도 될 수 있을 것이고요. 이렇게 때로는 아기자기하고 때로는 깊이 있게 공유되는 그런 마이스 그런 것들이 병존한다면 지속 가능성도 훨씬 더 영향력 있게 파급될 것으로 생각합니다. 특히 거시적으로 봤을 때 우리 고양시는 중국과 일본, 싱가포르, 인도 등 아시아권 안에서 과연 규모의 마이스 산업으로 있어서 우위를 점할 수 있는가라는 고민도 듭니다. 국토와 재정의 사이즈의 한계가 있기 때문이죠. 따라서 우리 고양시는 우리에게 맞는 우리만의 마이스 전략이 필요하다고 생각이 듭니다. 끝으로 우리 고양시와 의회에서 해야 될 일에 대해서 말씀드리고 마무리할까 합니다. 오늘의 화두인 이 지속 가능한 마이스 산업의 실천 방안으로 이른바 최근에 페이퍼리스 마이스가 확대되는 상황입니다. 사실 굴뚝 없는 황금 산업이라는 이름으로 마이스 산업이 감사했던 이유는 마이스를 통해 연계된 수많은 업종들이 동반 성장할 수 있었기 때문입니다. 그런데 이른바 친환경 컨벤션 또는 그린 컨벤션이 가속화됨으로써 최소한 인쇄라든가 출판 업계는 마이스 산업이라는 언덕에 기댈 수 있는 그 파이가 줄어들고 있는 것 같습니다. 저희 환경경제위원회에서 있었던 우스갯소리입니다. 환경 보존을 위해서 우리 의원들이 일회용품 사용을 자제하면 어떻겠냐는 의견이 있었습니다. 그런데 동시에 그럼 일회용품 생산하는 기업은 어떻게 해야 되냐라는 문제에 봉착하게 되더라고요. 그렇습니다. 목표는 분명합니다. 네, 이 지속 가능한 마이스 산업을 논의하는 데 있어서 소외받거나 그리고 피해를 보는 사람들은 없는지 함께 고민했으면 좋겠습니다. 이상입니다.
예, 감사합니다. 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 우리 이상열 단장님이 이제 일하기 굉장히 편하실 것 같은데요. 이제 전반적으로 깨닫고 있으셔가지고. 하여튼 as you mentioned in your last slide, no more conversation is action, more action. I don't like the terms of NATO, which stands for no action, talk only. So, give us your solution. This, as I mentioned, is an example case study of Formula E. What kind of sustainable mice can be held in Goyang? So can you also, as she mentioned, that stakeholder engagement consensus is very, very important. So do you have any examples? Is the success story?
Yeah, there's hundreds of examples. I think, London was a great example of the Olympics catalyzing change. And so really it's about coming together, right? It's not difficult. This is not difficult. We all can change our cups. We can get rid of our water bottles. We can use more sustainable food. We can recycle our waste. We can offset our emissions. It's not difficult. Each of you can do it. You just got to do it. And you got to start. And it's not, and you get better every time you do it. And I think that's the message. Just do it. Sorry.
Randy, you can add as a last panelist.
Yeah, I would add that a big piece of implementation is making sure that all of your service people understand what we're talking about. So many times sustainability just sort of comes from the top, but then the staff, the workers who have to execute it don't really know why we're doing something exactly, so they need to adjust and so forth. So I think we need broader awareness and understanding of sustainability. Anywhere we go in the world, we ask, what does sustainability mean to you? And you get a different answer from every person. So we have a lot of work to do just to educate and raise awareness. So I'd say that's a big piece, is to raise awareness among all of your stakeholders, all of your frontline people implementing and so forth, is to understand trends. Things change quickly. Suddenly around the world, everybody's talking about plastic. Well, we've known for 10 years that the world's oceans are filling up with plastic. Society's only read the memo in the last year. So suddenly, travelers, consumers are like, I can't use a plastic straw, and all of a sudden there's plastics. Well, there's going to be other issues like that. Let's predict them. Let's not be surprised when suddenly these things are happening. We know all the issues, but all the people executing and our practitioners of accepting visitors, of mice and so forth, should be much better informed so we can anticipate and fix problems before they're bigger problems.
Okay, thank you. 권 의원님 마지막으로 말씀 있으시면 해주시고.
말씀은 이미 다 드렸고요. 기본적으로 결론적으로 말씀드리면 고양시가 컨벤션과 도시의 발전을 위해서는 관광적인 요소를 반드시 마련을 해야 된다. 그것이 집객 시설과 그다음에 자본이 서울로 빠져나가는 것이 아니라 고양시에 남아서 도시 발전을 이룰 수 있다. 그런 말씀을 드리고요. 기본적으로는 지금 3전시장을 또 짓는 걸로 알고 있습니다. 3전시장을 지을 때는 외형적으로 랜드마크 요소를 좀 넣어서 지금과는 좀 다른, 그다음에 세계인이 찾았을 때 외형만 보고 킨텍스를 알 수 있는 내용까지 추가된다면 고양시의 브랜드 가치는 더욱 상승할 수 있을 거라고 생각합니다. 이상입니다.
예, 감사합니다. 그 시간이 다 됐다고 계속 사인이 와서요. 하여튼 뭐 첫 번째 세션이 굉장히 중요한 세션이고 많은 디스커션이 필요함에도 불구하고 시간 제한상 마치겠습니다. 우리 발표자, 토론자분께 큰 박수를 보내주시기 바라겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 고맙습니다. 아울러 좌장으로 수고해 주셨는데요. 김철원 교수님께도 여러분 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 고맙습니다. 자, 5분 모두 다시 자리로 모시겠습니다. 저희가 주어진 시간이 참 야속합니다. 정말 많은 이야기들 또 오고 갈 수 있을 것 같은데요. 이렇게나 아름다운 고양시에서 우리 마이스 산업을 지속적으로 육성하고 또 추진해 나가기 위해서 어떤 계획들을 갖춰야 할지 말씀 함께 나누고 있습니다.